first talk is entitled, What I'm Leaving My Daughter. Jim Carrier was raised on a farm where the circle of life was plain to see. Roaming the American West, he wrote about climate, water, air, waste. He built a house off the grid and sailed the Atlantic in a small boat. They showed him what sustainable is. Let's welcome Jim.
Thank you. Thanks very much. All right, let's light this rocket here. All right, my name is Jim, and this is my daughter, Amy. This photo was shot 30 years ago in the Grand Canyon. Amy is still a natural blonde, but as you can see from the picture, sustainability is not my hair color. If you go Google the word sustainable, what I consider one of the most abused words in the English language, one result is from Walmart, a pledge to buy 1 acre of wildlife habitat for every acre of land they develop. So far, 700,000 acres of superstores. I've come to think of sustainable in a very concrete way. What have I left for Amy? Shown here arriving home from the hospital in the arms of her mother, Lynn, after her birth 40 years ago this month. I was 30 years old. So now I have a daughter, someone who will inherit the earth. But in my years here, how much energy have I consumed? What resources have I destroyed? Will her life be restricted or even foreshortened because of my consumption? Every parent wants the best for their children, but can that happen if they inherit a world that has less energy, is warmer, or is worse off than the one we were handed, even if it's filled with banjos? My thinking on this really came into focus after reading Edward Abbey. Growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of the cancer cell. But I'd have to say that the seeds for my philosophy were planted on a farm when I grew up in upstate New York. I was 6 years old when Dad and Mom bought a 100-acre chicken farm. My first headline was, "To receive chicks." We plowed and planted, tapped maples, shoveled manure, cleaned countless eggs, and on the hillside behind Amy, planted thousands of evergreen saplings year after year. Planting trees is a tangible promise. Years later, I wrote a cheeky column about how many trees soaking up CO2 it would take to mitigate flying to environmental conferences to save the earth, like this one next year in Sweden. In '79, we bought 12 acres in the Black Hills of South Dakota and built a passive solar, earth-sheltered, off-the-grid house with photovoltaics and wind power. Amy went to school down a Forest Service road. It was a rough-hewn paradise. At the age of 40, I was fired as editor of the Rapid City Journal, got divorced, and lost the dream. But I was hired by the Denver Post to be the Rocky Mountain Ranger. You see my name on the door in red ink. I was told to drive around the American West and write about anything I wanted. I lived in Yellowstone, rafted the Colorado River, looked for the Marlboro Man, and covered every major Western environmental issue, water, energy, nuclear bombs, and many trips I was able to take Amy along. But after 13 years on the best job in journalism, I was pushed out. So I bought a sailboat and sailed across the Atlantic. Here we are in Italy. On a boat, you're a little earth. You carry your water, your food, your fuel. You have to decide whether to throw trash overboard. Sustainability on a boat is not an idle question. Well, after losing everything in Katrina, Trish O'Kane and I moved here to Madison, she to get a PhD in environmental studies, me to write and become an activist against rhythm and booms and other things that failed to meet my righteous standards. So, who better than me to talk to Ignite? So I went online and calculated my carbon footprint and was shocked to learn that I was above average in greenhouse gas emissions. 54 tons a year, probably because we own a house. And get this one, my ecological footprint. If everyone on the planet lived my lifestyle, we'd need 5.4 Earths. By the way, I learned that when it comes to food, cheese has the third highest carbon footprint after lamb and beef. I didn't dare check beer. So what have I left for Amy? Let's see. I've driven maybe 1 million miles, lived in a dozen homes. There's the figures up there. That doesn't count the stuff in the house or me flying to Washington last weekend to be with her on her 40th birthday. But basically the bottom line is I've consumed energy that Amy won't have. 13,000 tons of carbon dioxide. It'll need 26,000 trees to soak up that much fuel. I don't think we planted that many trees back on the farm. If everyone in this room lived as I have, we'd need 5 million trees. If everyone in Madison did, we're talking 6 billion. So even with good intentions, recycling, bicycling, changing light bulbs, drinking organic milk, I've left a diminished world to my daughter. In my definition of sustainability, I've failed. So I called Amy and I talked to her about this, and she said, "You left me with an appreciation for nature. But in the DC area, in the next 30 years, our most god-awful days will be the norm. We're not talking 100 years from now. It's going to happen in my lifetime." Thank you.